Hello, 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 my beautiful empresses. Welcome back to Embody Your Empress. My name is Sarah King, the host of this wonderful podcast and the founder of Empress Nation. This is the place you want to be if you're up for opening up to new perspectives and finding out who you are at a deeper soul led level. I have a fantastic guest today who I know is going to take us there on that journey. I would love to welcome Ben Milston to Embody Your Empress. Welcome, Ben.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Good to be here.
Great, 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 great. Let's start off with I know it's a beautiful Aussie accent, but you've been all over the world, you've traveled everywhere. So tell us, Ben, who you are as a human, as a soul, and how you came to be on this journey doing what you do.
Yeah, great. I originally grew up in Sydney, Australia, and I think, coming from that area, Sydney it was kind of this kind of luxury country to be growing up in and born into, and went to, a good school, had a loving family, and throughout my kind of like adolescence, there was just kind of this like weighted feeling that something quite wasn't clicking, something quite wasn't right. But I still, everywhere kind of showed us you have to be this person, you have to have this degree, you have to have this education, you need to be doing XYZ in order to be someone in this world. And Throughout, I was about when I was maybe 14 or 15, I got really heavy into depression. I was always a bit of a young, like a small, scrawny kid. And, I'd be bullied at school and whatever else, and just kind of got along with it. But there was this kind of one thought that I kept coming back on, that if I wasn't going to like fit in or belong, if I wasn't going to like make it in this world, then like that was me having failed life. And so from, you know, a young teen, I'd already like convinced myself that that's it. I was like a failure of life. And I've got my whole life to, look forward to just failing over and over again. Um, and I think one of the biggest, one of the hardest things for me was I constantly felt like I needed to, there was this constant pressure of like, okay, how well am I doing in school? What am I doing in comparison to everyone else? What are the kids getting? The grades? Where are we going? What are we, who do you want to be when you grow up? There's this constant kind of idea of just like, not who are you, but who do you want to be later down the line? And so I think from a very young age, I really wanted to. I really just wanted to be seen, and I really just wanted to like kind of feel something bigger than myself. But everything that I looked out towards that was so-called bigger than myself were just the societal pressures of doing well and, getting a good job or being a respectable person and, being, having an education or a university degree. And this kind of led me down, further paths because I wasn't as smart as the rest of the people in my family or some of the other kids at school. And it didn't matter like how much I tried to fit in at school or, comb my hair a specific way or, dress the same way or whatever else. It was always just kind of pushed back on me of just like, either I dressed differently and then I was laughed at for that, or I dressed the same and I was laughed at for trying too hard. Um, and uh, and that kind of spiraled me into about 10 years of like heavy depression, anxiety, substance abuse. I remember like at night I was like taking drugs in my room just to kind of escape because I didn't want to end my life necessarily. I just wanted out of the pain of like doing it wrong, being this failure, not being good enough to be here. Uh, and then I ended up moving countries. I moved over to Israel to connect with my religion more, to get out of, I grew up in a Jewish family, and that was the only kind of connection that I had to anything greater than myself, any kind of, purpose outside of society. And I didn't really connect with my religion, but I didn't know anything else. So that was just the only thing that I had to work with. Um, I knew I needed to get out of Sydney. I knew I needed to like leave that kind of life. and I moved to Israel, and everything kind of seemed all right for a bit. But as you probably know, you know the work is inside, and if you haven't worked on yourself inside, you take that wherever you go. And so, fair enough, I came to Israel still trying to be someone, find this, outer experience that would really like solve all my problems. And I just kind of, I went and spiraled again. I even joined the army to try and buffen up and do something good and kind of connect to something. And then while I was there, I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, this isn't right. This isn't where I want to be. This isn't, what life is about and where I want to be moving. I actually got injured in the army, and, I was lying in bed for about 2 months, unable to walk. And I got into my first self-development book, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And that kind of opened up my first thoughts of, wait a minute, if everything's coming from within, then what can I do with my life? If I've literally created this kind of, fear and these doubts and these, perceived low self-worth and anxiety and overthinking myself that literally has caused me to the brink of suicide, like, can I take it the other way? Can I win this internal battle that I almost lost many times, to a point where I can overcome, all the things that I had taught myself and that I had been taught and that I had learned and that I had seen and perceived. And, it turns out like it's possible to overrun and relearn, the things that we learned. And one of the examples I like to give is this idea of like, we don't choose what language we grow up with. It's just like for us, we learned English growing up. We just knew English. But it's the exact same with the beliefs and the thoughts and the values and the morals. We grow up with this idea of what feeling too much is like, what, being too sensitive is like, too emotional, too dramatic, what is okay to do, what behavior is right, how much you should put other people first before you look after yourself first. All these ideas are just as learnt as the language we grew up learning. And so I was like, okay, I need to take a step back from everything that I've learnt. I need to take a step back from everything that I've been conditioned to learn, just because of other people's conditioning, my parents' conditioning, my family's conditioning, society, education system, and really start asking myself the questions of, okay, well, who am I? You know, if no one else has asked me that question, I sure as hell didn't ask myself that question ever. So who am I, and what is important for me? What are my morals, and what are my values, and what are my thoughts and beliefs and opinions about, this world? And that kind of helped to spark what's now been about a decade long journey of transformation and growth and travel and yeah, getting into the space that I'm in now. So I'll give it
Um,
a breather there for now. If
yeah.
there,
But speaking about our programming is like our language, I have never heard it said in that way before, and it just absolutely drops in your body. Like when you said that, I'm like, yeah,
Mm.
it is. It's just, it's like the language we just grew up knowing all that subconscious programming in there. And I've never heard it described like that. Do you think with different cultures around the world that the subconscious beliefs and the limiting beliefs and the patterns that we get into, do they run a similar theme, or because you're very well traveled, have you seen different cultures have different digressions, or some are more healthier than others? What are your thoughts on that, Ben?
um, yeah. So something that I've noticed from meeting a lot of people around the world in different, cultures and is that as humans, we tend to all want very similar things, no matter where we grow up, no matter, what kind of experiences that we've lived. We all want the basic, feeling of feeling loved, feeling accepted, feeling like we belong. And I think, this comes back thousands of years when we were hunter-gatherers, that if we, got rejected from the pack or the tribe, then that was, life or death for us. So it came very much at this kind of, survival instinct that we need to do what we need to do in order to feel accepted, to feel loved, to be accepted, to feel validated. And I think that's, some of the core things that everyone is looking for. One of the problems with this is that we are from a young age, from when we're a baby, when it is literally survival of I depend on, my carers for my living. At no point were we ever taught to get out of that survival instinct. At no point were we ever say, then we became a kid and I was like, this is right and this is wrong. And if you did that wrong, you'd get punished. And if you did this right, you'd get, the love and the acceptance of your carers or of the teachers, of parents or wherever. And so constantly, as we grew up, we constantly outsourced our value and our worth and our love and acceptance to everything and everyone around us. But then it all becomes conditional. So we keep chasing, that worth and that love. We keep needing to prove ourselves more. We keep needing to, do more, achieve more in order to receive that same level of love by, then it becomes our partner or by our kids or, from our parents when we're older, our bosses and whatever else. And I think one of the biggest uh, things that isn't a part of general kind of education or growing up is that it has to work both ways. We have to also have this balance between, yes, there is a survival instinct of looking outwards for danger or looking outwards for acceptance and whatever else, but there is also needing to be that balance of looking inwards as to giving ourselves that self-validation, that self-worth, that self-love. If we can't see ourselves, then we can't hope to be to feel seen from anyone else, truly seen from anyone else. If we can't love ourselves fully, well, then the love that we receive from other people is going to feel like an almost fake love. And so I think, there has been such a disconnect in so many societies between this idea of what we need to do in order to prove ourselves to feel loved and accepted and validated versus what we need to do for ourselves to get that same level of love and acceptance of ourself, which I can't really think there are like very few areas in the world that actually at a young age teach that as part of the culture. And I think that's, a massive kind of almost, I wouldn't say human flaw, but a human misstep in evolution maybe hasn't quite reached that part of human evolution to recognizing that the education needs to come both externally and internally and not just externally.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Because I literally, I have two young children, and they've seen me on my personal development journey go from a very wounded person who didn't love herself to someone who very much loves myself. And you've just got me really reflecting on, okay, they've seen my journey. Am I am I doing enough to reinforce their own
Mm.
belief system within them? And I'm going to have to go and reflect on that, Ben. Thank you for my homework. Really actually making me sit here and think. Um, yeah, I know with my older daughter is 9 years old, we talk a lot about confidence, self-esteem, and just feeling worthy of, but I haven't touched on the self-love. So I'm going to open up that conversation and see if we can delve into that. Um,
Beautiful.
yeah, thank you. Right, thank you. I really appreciate that coming into my awareness,
Yeah.
reflecting on my parenting skills.
Well, that's it. It's not even a reflection of parenting skills. It's just a reflection of all, what we know to do, what we think is the right thing to do. Like I know my parents did the best that they could with the tools that they had, and they love them, love me very much. But when it came to a lot of and I still see it reflected, a lot of the things that they say, it makes sense that I grew up having this disconnect to what emotions I felt were acceptable or unacceptable. What emotions I felt were, was I able to see or not? And I see this a lot now with, and no judgment on any parent because it's being a parent is difficult and it's it takes a lot and I've got a 2-year-old daughter myself, and it really is a can be a really big reflection of your own kind of journey of what is coming through, but without certain awareness, then you do what you think is right in the best possible way for you to do it. And so just, boosting that awareness, I think that's awesome that you take that and like, all right, cool. What can I like, how can I tweak this or what can I do? And
Mhm.
it's that learning game.
Interesting. And children are so perceptive. Like I started writing affirmations on the bathroom mirror and I left the whiteboard marker there. So my kids came along and started writing their own. And I'm like, that's fantastic. And they
Love
were
it.
like, are we going to get in trouble? I'm like, why would you get in trouble? I've just done the same thing. And I love that we all had our own individual like sections that we could all share together and embrace. Um, which leads me, you mentioned the love factor of
Mm,
ourself, our self love, and getting comfortable with loving ourselves. And yet, I know for many of us out there, even excuse me, my voice is literally closing over as I'm saying that. Someone needs to hear this. The idea of eye gazing with ourselves in the mirror to show ourselves, that self love, that compassion, that forgiveness is really confronting, especially when we have been killer hard on ourselves, like when the judgment, that comparison has been playing really loud, like to be able to show ourselves some love by
mm.
eye gazing or any other way can be really difficult. What are ways that you like to encourage people to start on that very, I don't want to say basic level, but that sort of beginning level when self-love has been so outside of the self to help draw it back in for it to really be embodied and on a soul level?
Yeah. So something that I think is really important that, is kind of my life work to kind of spread this message is that throughout our upbringing, our perceived self-value has eroded, has been depreciated because we've outsourced our worth and love, to other people, other things, right? In hopes that what we think will be accepted, our beliefs or morals will be accepted, in hopes that our emotions won't be too much, in hopes that our behavior will be allowed. And so we've outsourced who we are with the hopes that, with the acceptance or the idea that other people know better, other people are right. And when we've done this, and this again, is just coming back to classic kind of survival patterns, that it's eroded our perceived self-value. And why I say perceived self-value is because our self-value has never changed. From the moment we're born, we have a self-value like through the roof. And that is the value of every, human person, human being. But as we've been taught, and a classic kind of example with this is a kid crying in public, and a parent might maybe feel uncomfortable because their own kind of discomforts, other people are looking and they don't feel comfortable with the judgment or the thoughts of others or whatever else. Are they going to think I'm a bad parent? Are they going to think that I'm terrible, that I'm doing this wrong and doing this right? So naturally, the kind of way of getting away from those uncomfortable feelings is to say to the kid, like, not here, not now, like, I'm feeling embarrassed or, don't cry and whatever. Okay, so the kid then grows up learning these emotions aren't allowed. If I have big feelings and big emotions, to hide them, to suppress them. And so that then helps to or aids in depreciating their perceived self-value. So essentially, what we want to be doing is recognizing one, that our self-value has always been high. The only thing that has come down through, survival patterns and conditioning is our perception of it. And when we realize and recognize that it's only just our perception of how we see our value and not our value ourself, then we can start to work our way up to perceiving ourselves as the valuable piece ourselves. And a question that I asked, all my clients is this kind of, if you could go back in time to your 1-year-old self, your baby self, your 3-year-old self, is there any part of you that would say this baby isn't valuable, that this baby doesn't deserve everything in the world, that you, as the baby you are, doesn't deserve all the love and the acceptance and the abundance and everything in the world? And they think, no, of course not. This baby deserves everything. Even when they, make a mistake and they draw on the carpet and whatever. Yeah, of course. Even if they're crying because they want this or they want that, 100%. Even if they fall down 100 times before they, actually start walking, or they drop a glass, or they whatever. And then at some point, that kind of becomes, well, no, this isn't allowed anymore. This isn't acceptable. This means you're bad. This means you're a failure. And so rather than our value going down, our perception of ourself goes down.
Mm.
And so when we can start to take back what I call the three pillars of self-value, where we can start to take back our inner ownership so that we give, allowance to our experience and say, you know what? My thoughts matter. My experience matters. My perception matters. My belief matters. So does yours, and so does yours, but so do mine just as much. Then we can start to build that. Okay. When we take back emotional legitimacy, in that when we say, yes, I might have big feelings, but that's okay. And I'm allowed to, you know, when we can start to say, you know what, you might not understand why I feel this way, but I do, and that's okay. Or you might disagree with how I feel, but that's okay as well. I'm allowed to feel this way, whether it's because of my conditioning, whether it's just because I do feel this way, whether it's because I had a bad night's sleep and I'm a bit more sensitive,
All of
whether it's
those.
the
Yeah.
kids were up all night or whatever, I had a fight with my partner. I'm allowed to feel how I'm allowed to feel. And when we start taking back ownership of those feelings, then we start giving legitimacy to how we feel and to the people that we are. And so our perception of ourselves starts to rise. And when we start taking more aligned action that actually sits in with where we are and who we are as people, rather than asking ourselves, well, what behavior do I need to do in order to keep you happy or to keep you
Mm.
comfortable? But rather, wait a minute, what behavior like feels right for me, feels true for me in my world so that I feel like I have more purpose or I feel happy. And it's okay if other people are uncomfortable. We talk about discomfort like it's the end of the world, and like I have to act like completely and utterly erode everything in my life so that no one else is uncomfortable. Discomfort is great. It's a part of our emotional bodies and us as humans. Um, but when we, start taking more aligned action that says, I'm actually allowed to walk the path that's I want to walk, and it's okay if you feel uncomfortable, and I'm here to support you and I'm here to love you for feeling uncomfortable, but I'm not going to apologize for being me. Then that, perception of ourselves starts to increase. So I think, yeah, it's really that kind of recognition of our value has always been up there, and it always will be. From the moment we're born to the moment we die, our value is up there. We just need to start working at moving our perception of ourselves back in balance to where our actual value is.
Mm. Gosh, those people pleasing tendencies, they've done a number on us. I'm really curious, and this will be just purely your opinion, but I'm curious to hear, out of all the emotions on the emotional range, which one or ones do you feel that we are more judged from society when we express them?
I think that's an interesting question because it's a bit of a catch-22, because I think that often society judges people that are authentic the most, because it also comes from a place of self-reflection where they're maybe a bit resentful that they're not as authentic. And I think, the people that are judged the most tend to be the people that are more outspoken or more different, or have that, portray that weird characteristics that are their natural human characteristics, or their, people just kind of being true to themselves, I think often kind of get the judgment from outside, because there is a lot of, judgment in and of itself is just them uncomfortable with their own feelings that are coming up with this. And rather than sitting with their own feelings, they want to make themselves feel better by judging someone else. And that's just their survival patterns of, I feel uncomfortable. I don't like feeling uncomfortable. It's probably your fault that I feel uncomfortable. It's
Mm.
probably because you're doing something, or I have these set of morals, but if you're doing something different from my morals, I don't want to accept that maybe my morals are wrong, or maybe that both of ours can be right. I'm going to just say that what you're doing is wrong, and I'm going to judge you for it, because in their mind, that's a strategic protection, mechanism for, well, I don't want to feel like I'm in the wrong here, or like I need to look into my own kind of emotional status. Judgment in and of itself isn't a reflection of the person being judged, but of the person judging. So I think, a lot of judgment comes from when people are just, being true to themselves.
Yeah, cool. So do you think that the person judging is being activated by that emotion, and instead of acknowledging and exploring it, that they're just bypassing?
Yeah, 100%. I think,
Mm.
a lot of judgment comes, we constantly are comparing ourselves with everyone else to kind of get a understanding of where we fit in with our own sense of identity. And uh, any differences to our sense of identity, without, you know, more work on yourself to overcome this, initially feels like an attack. Initially feels like, well, if they're different to me, I want to protect who I am. So I'm going to say, no, 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 they're too different. This is the way I should be living. And this,
Mm.
you get this on in every aspect of life, that people will very quick kind of defend their beliefs, their religion, their ideals, their country, their history, their whatever, because any differences can feel like a judgment on their, or a reflection of them. And so I think
Mm.
judgment of itself is this kind of just protection gap of, this feels uncomfortable for me. It feels a lot easier to judge. And I think, it's kind of similar to how I see bullying. And, I'm looking at, why I got bullied, and why some people bully and why some people don't. And it's the same kind of other end of the other side of the coin of self-worth, that some people become the people pleasers and will do everything to try and feel worthy, and some people want to feel bigger, or more powerful, or more out there, and so they become the bully. And that just depends on the person and their environment, and what they're around and their upbringing, but they're both looking for the same piece. They're both looking for that feeling of acceptance. And so with people who judge other people, I think often there isn't that kind of emotional legitimacy, that they say, I'm allowed to feel what I'm allowed to feel. I'm allowed to think what I'm allowed to think. And they're allowed to do what they're allowed to do. And they're allowed to, be them, but I'm also allowed to be me. Rather than it being like, well, if they're doing something different, maybe that's wrong. I don't want to take responsibility, or I don't, I'm going to judge that. My
Mm.
morals are obviously right.
Yeah, I guess it comes back to what you were saying before, like instead of the external, it's coming back to the internal. And that, on this human experience, we are all having a variation of our own reality. So to me, it makes sense that we're all going to have varying positions on things, and that in our own way, we are all going to be right. And also, like, obviously, as I mentioned at the start of the podcast, I'm a big believer in opening up to new perspectives. So I'm always encouraging people to share with me things that may not be my um, first thought, because if they share with me something else, I'm always open to taking it on. And again, it comes back to what you were saying about being in the discomfort of things, because when you are opening up when you're opening up your mind, up your energy field to things that aren't the regular for you, there can be an uncomfortability to it. It can feel like a discomfort. And if we've learned anything in the past few years, especially, it seems to be the whole trend of like growth is in the uncomfortable, growth is in the discomfort. And if we're all staying the same, if we're all stagnant, what becomes of us?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think you touched on a really interesting point with that of that growth comes in the discomfort because, you know, the way that I used to respond to discomfort was I'm not safe. Something is wrong here. I need to protect, and this was all, coming subconsciously and essentially these lookings of what this meaning to the emotions feel, or to the feelings, the bodily sensations. I'm not safe. Something is wrong. How can we get back to a level of comfort? Whereas when we shift that to exactly what you said of what if discomfort is actually growth in disguise, and we take it away from this idea of it's not safety, but in fact, you know, it's a opportunity for growth, then it can have this, different feeling to it. So now that when I feel uncomfortable for something, I'm like, oh, there's some growth coming. Oh, okay, what do we have to go on? It gets exciting because I know that that feeling of discomfort equals a level of growth, equals, me being challenged, my perspective being challenged, my beliefs being challenged, me being open to new ideas or new perspectives, rather than it being an attack or being something personal. And it can change it from that, this isn't safe to this is an opportunity.
Oh, I fully get that. I had to train myself, rewire my programming because I would get so scared and completely introvert, shut down, make myself physically sick if I was in a growth area, if I was feeling the discomfort. And like you say, out of survival. And then when I started to reframe it, be like, it's in the growth, and then the feeling of excitement comes really quickly and really purely with just a few areas of edging out that discomfort. And now I really look forward to it. When I feel that edginess happening, I'm like, I get super pumped. I'm like, right, we're in this. It's not going to last forever, it's going to pass. And I'm here for the expansion. And hopefully, I don't stretch too much that I snap and I go full introvert mode again. But I know that there is something that's going to be really good and positive, even if it's I just made it through that. Like, if
Yeah,
that's the worst that happens, then that's great. And the best
yeah.
is the complete opposite scale. And I think as a woman who has, like, I was also bullied at high school, like, I spent 2 years having no friends, just trying to be invisible, and then I carried that through into adulthood, and also like it comes from childhood as well, being very quiet, very invisible, very flying under the radar. It has taken me many years to unlearn that. I took the
Mm.
long way around it. That was my choice. There could have been much easier, like quicker, more direct routes, but I chose the long way. And
Me too.
yeah, why not, right? We've got a lifetime. But I feel like having that experience throughout my years and coming to this place where once upon a time talking to a stranger on the internet on Zoom would have completely freaked me out. And here I do it all the time. I'm like, well, that didn't just happen without the discomfort. So now the excitement when it flows in, when there's something that pushes me, I'm like, great, there's going to be a next version of Sarah turning up really soon. And then she's going to expand and she's going to expand. So I
Yeah,
love the points that you made there. It's fantastic.
yeah. And I think, it's really important to say a lot of this work, it's not to get rid of these feelings.
Mm,
I've come on a podcast like this and I can still feel my heart, beating, and I can still kind of feel the jitters and whatever. But it's not that these doesn't exist. It's that we can learn to see that I'm not in danger here. This is something that I can get through and I've gotten through before. It's something that I can still sit with and be okay with rather than needing to distract myself from it or to find, a way out of it or to fix it, and rather, see, okay, how am I moving forward in the direction that is most aligned for me, rather than just like staying stuck in this kind of discomfort of bodily sensations. And I think, for a lot of people, when we break down, what emotions are, and we have, the labels of them of, anxiety and overwhelm and, sadness and happy and whatever else, anger, frustration, that what's happening in the body is we have these kind of bodily sensations, whether it's the heart racing or the tight chest or the fidgety or restlessness, and this just energy throughout the body, which our brain is essentially patterned as, oh, that's anxiety, I know that, or that's overwhelm, I recognize that, that's anger, I know this. And then it goes straight into how it wants to get out of that emotion, how it wants to, how it wants to deal with it. And I think something that we can start asking ourselves of, is how are we looking at what kind of meaning or interpretation are we giving these emotions? And I think, there's three things that we often kind of can, for each emotion, interpret the emotion that will lead us either towards the classic conditioned patterns and habitual patterns, or towards something that we are allowed to feel these sensations and move forward in the direction that we want. And this, from my experience, has been, what am I making this mean about myself? Am I a failure because I made a mistake? Is that now my identity? What am I making it about myself? Am I not good enough? What am I making it about my safety? Or my capabilities? Do I feel like this is a dangerous situation? Does this feel like something I need to run away from, that I need to hide from, that I need to fix straight away because I feel unsafe? Or what do I mean? What am I making this mean about my worth? That if I do this, I will be rejected. If I do this, I'll be judged. If I do this, I won't be good enough. And when we start to reframe those things from, rather than, I made a mistake, I feel uncomfortable because I made a mistake or whatever, I'm a failure, to I made a mistake and it's okay and I'm learning and it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to still feel like this, even if, there is this discomfort and the heart racing, but I'm okay, I'm safe. 100% of your listeners have gotten through everything that they've encountered in life. That's a fantastic percentage when you consider what we've had to endure to get here in life. We've all endured 100% of every, heavy emotion, heavy this sensation, whatever else. We've gotten through all of it. So we have a very good track record for being able to get through a lot, you know? And I think remembering that we can get through so much because we have literally gotten through everything up until now. If you're still alive, you've gotten through everything one way or another, that, we need to remind ourselves, wow, okay, we can actually get through a lot. Like, we are super strong, for everything that we have gone through in our childhood and our teenage years, where everything was like life or death if you weren't in a specific clique or a specific group, or, you wore the wrong clothes to a party or whatever, and there was this actual like life or death situation, and you survived it. And so recognize, like, we're super strong and we have such a capability to get through these sensations, no matter how hard they are, that if we can tell ourselves that in the moment and remind ourselves that when we're feeling it, then it becomes a lot easier to just be like, oh, yeah, okay, this feels like a lot right now. I'll get it. I'll get through it. I'll be okay. It's heavy and I might need a bit of space. That's okay, you know, and it will pass and it will move, and I'll learn from it. I'll understand something and I'll maybe try something different next time, and life will go on, instead of it being like every time there is this discomfort of like, no, I'm done, I'm out, it's too much, I can't cope, I can't handle it. It's, all these kind of like expressions of can't hope, can't coping, or can't handling it. And I hear that a lot. I was like, well, you've handled everything else, you've coped with everything else, and yet there's this idea of like, I can't.
We are
So
so much more resilient than what we give ourselves credit for. I feel like that was just
100%.
like the biggest pump up talk that someone needed to hear out there. I'm like, yes,
I hope
sharing
so.
on the edges. So I'd love to ask you, Ben, what are your words of wisdom for inspiring our nation out there, our listeners?
My words of wisdom for inspiring the nation out there. I think realizing that whenever there has been, and we've all experienced moments of confidence in our life, even if they've been brief. We've all experienced moments of feeling proud or having achieved something or done something, and realizing that these moments, even if they've been fleeting, have come from within, have come from these moments where we've actually seen ourselves, we've validated ourselves, we've like really like looked and been like, yeah, I did it, you know? And that's where the comfort, it's not that we're a shy person or, there are confident people and shy people. It's that this is within all of us and we have the ability to access this, and it has been accessed by probably everyone. It's just recognizing that the work is about learning how to access that within ourselves. And that's a really good, it's a great kind of concept because then it means we have all the tools already inside of us. We have all the ability and capability already inside of us. We don't need anything, external to happen or not happen. I'll only be happy when this happens, or I'll only be successful when this happens. I'll only feel good about my life when this happens. And 100%, it makes sense that we may want support getting there because if it's a lot of the times you don't know what you don't know, and so if you're running on these kind of survival patterns, it makes sense that you may want some support, being like, hey, let's access these parts of you that are there, but you've just kind of forgotten how to access, or you're not sure where they exist in your subconscious. But everything that you need to be, this self that you feel proud of and that you love, that is deserving of everything, that person already exists, and that person's waiting, for you to reconnect with them. They're crying out, being like, hey, I'm in here still. Can you see me? Can you acknowledge me? I'm here and I'm ready to come out now. They're
Yes,
there.
they're there. I love this work that you are supporting people with, and you're doing it in such an authentic way. Like you truly walk your walk, you're talking your talk. So when you are helping people come back and find those little pieces of themselves, like I can just feel the magic of the connection. Like, when like someone just like it lights up, and I can just see you bringing that out in everyone, Ben. It's amazing, and it's an amazing gift that you are, I don't want to say bringing to the world, but that you are highlighting to everybody. And even just this conversation is just highlighting what is truly important for us, and it's ourselves. And everything is right here in our heart, in our energy. It's our soul coming through. Thank you so much. What's the best way for people to connect with you, to work with you, to be around all this amazing inspiration?
Yeah, really just, find me on Facebook or Instagram is probably the easiest way, and send me a message. You can also look at my website if you want, but I would really love to just get in touch, have a conversation with you, see where you are on your journey and what's been going on. I'm super friendly and just love talking to people, so would love to just have a chat.
It's true, guys. He is super friendly. We just met today. I love it. I love it, Ben. Thank you so much for being here on Embody Your Empress. These conversations, I don't know if you noticed, I was getting the full body like twitches going on. I'm so excited. And I get so passionate when I see fellow guests get so passionate about really important things in life. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, this has been a real pleasure.